Amber, the webinar is live and we are live on YouTube as well. So we're good on my end.
Great, thanks. I'll start in just 1 minute. Thank you. Okay, so I am going to call the Parks and Conservation meeting to order for October, I think it's 21st today, October 21st. I believe, I'm going to run through this. I believe, check you guys off, that we have all council members present except for Jesse Ramos. First, I think everyone knows at this point that we are doing this virtually, continuing to be virtual, and you may leave comments for council if you have any for Parks and Conservation or any other issues at 406-552-6012, or send an email to council@ci.missoula.mt.us. So we have minutes from October 14th to approve. Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing no changes, those minutes will stand approved. And let's see if we have, I will take public comment on any items now that are not on the agenda. If you would like to raise your hand, I just see 2 attendees here, but if you'd like to raise your hand to make public comment on items not on the agenda, you can do so at this point in time, and I will keep watching for that. Okay, you can take down the sharing screen. Thanks. Then I can kind of see everyone better. Thank you. Okay, so we just have a couple of agenda items to get through. The first one I'm excited about. Grant, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Awesome, I can. Yes. So the first one is a transfer of the Knife River Ponds open space property from JTL Group / Knife River to the city of Missoula. And I'm looking forward to this presentation. Grant, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, guys. Good morning, council members. Grant Carlton, Open Space Program Manager, Missoula Parks and Rec. Our first project that we'll discuss today is, like Amber said, the Knife River Ponds property transfer. And what we're asking for is authorization for the mayor to execute the grant deed of conveyance that will accept the actual transfer of what we're calling the Knife River Ponds open space property from JTL Group / Knife River. This arrangement was part of a 2002 partnership agreement between the city of Missoula and JTL Group Knife River as part of the construction and development of the Fort Missoula Regional Park. As part of that agreement, JTL Group decided and agreed to transfer a property that it at the time operated as a gravel pit to the city to be used as future parklands. And as part of that process, Montana Department of Environmental Quality, we can talk a little bit more about the due diligence later, but just as part of the background, DEQ required them to go through a reclamation process, and they satisfied all of the pieces of that litigation, and a judgment, satisfaction of judgment has been issued. So all requirements have been satisfied prior to the city taking ownership. So as I mentioned, the vision and the intent of the gift all along was for this property to be used as parkland. And so the preliminary vision that we're looking at is basically entails a publicly accessible parkland preserve that will allow the public to experience, the natural beauty that the property possesses, and the Bitterroot River and the open space in general. So there's a lot of it checks a lot of boxes. There's some educational components, recreation, public access components, lots of natural resource conservation, and then there's also some really awesome potential for restoration on this of this piece of land. And it looks like I meant to share my screen as well. So we're looking at you guys on your screen hopefully can see the parcel. So it contains 2 large ponds. And these types of open water bodies are pretty rare in the Missoula Valley. And they're very, very important for migratory waterfowl as they stop over on their migration. I know some folks have conducted some bird surveys which have identified over 32 different species of birds that have used the property and the area. And this is, partially due to those open body waters. It's also the property also has a really good riparian habitat as it's along the Bitterroot River. And so these types of habitats support all kinds of wildlife species, birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, obviously fish. And so and this property, worth noting, is that it's part of the the Audubon Society designated important bird area, the Clark Fork River Grass Valley, IBA. And so this is a really good piece of habitat. There's a lot of opportunities. And obviously it's a reclaimed gravel mine, so it does need some work. I know some of you guys have been out on site, and I've got Morgan here to talk a little bit about the future plans and some of the sort of the resource enhancement possibilities out there in just a moment. So all of this is part of sort of the preliminary vision, like I said, and obviously the future uses and design of this property will be subject to the public process. So, we'll develop management plans, resource assessments, we'll have public comment periods, and we'll have a full council review once we sort of design the actual plan and are ready for implementation. And I believe, Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're going to start that process in 2021. We've got some sort of, we're going to sort of button up the property in the meantime and start taking care of some resource assessments. But I think we're going to actually open up the full loan process in 2021.
Yeah, that is correct. And I think it is worth mentioning, Grant, we're still finalizing some access to the property as well, which is going to be critical in a critical component to designing the management plan and future use.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll talk about that access in just a moment. Thanks, Morgan.
Perfect.
And then worth noting while we're talking about the vision, so obviously we've got Fort Missoula Regional Park that is just right in the vicinity. So this, I think, will serve as sort of an extension to the beloved Fort Missoula Regional Park. And so it's just a really nice parcel in that we've got University of Montana land bounded on both sides by land. We've got Macaulay Butte Conservation easement just to the west there downstream. So it's just a really nice extension and builds on some of the momentum in the area. I wanted to touch on a couple of due diligence considerations, so you guys have that knowledge and background. As part of this process, we did reach out to the EPA and conducted a phase 1 environmental site assessment. And that was done at no cost to the city, which was really nice. And we wanted to do that primarily to make sure there were not, there weren't any major red flags, there weren't any sort of major public safety hazards or environmental hazards that we needed to address prior to taking ownership, or something that would even preclude us taking ownership. And as part of that, we did, that report concluded that there weren't any major issues of concern. And another really nice benefit of that was that we were able to remain eligible for EPA Brownfield grants. We haven't identified any need right now to pursue those Brownfields grants, but it's really nice to have that in our back pocket, because that program provides some technical assistance for safety cleanup and some reuse components of a contaminated property. So we have that we're eligible for that if we need it in the future. As Morgan mentioned, in one of the sort of most difficult pieces of this sort of the due diligence puzzle related to this property was ironing out legal access. We do have legal access off of 40th Avenue up in the northwest corner across, I don't know if you can see, but there's a little notch out of the top left corner of the property there. We have access via easement across that stretch there, and that's owned by Northern Lights Development property. And so we do have city access to the property, but we don't have public access. So that doesn't allow for public access, that easement. So I spoke with the owner of the adjacent Northern Lights Development property. That was a dead end. And simultaneously, I was in contact with University of Montana personnel. And we did, and in your packet, we did receive a letter from university leadership stating that they were on board and able to grant us access either from the east or from the northwest or both. And that's, sort of to be determined, but we did get reasonable assurances that we would be able to secure access from one or both of those University of Montana parcels. And so that the reason why we don't have that is because it does require a fairly lengthy Board of Regents process through the university. And I will be working with Marilyn Marler and other university staff over there to navigate that process. So that was really promising. I'm really grateful for the U for providing that. And as part of that, I know Maryland's been pushing to sort of kind of prod university leadership to start thinking about their parcels that they own in the area. And we did, as part of that letter, Paul Lasser, the VP of Finance, indicated that he supported sort of a collaborative effort to design the whole area with conservation and open space in mind. So we'll be working with the U in partnership to hopefully have a really awesome conservation and public access outcome in the whole area. There are no requested financial expenditures as part of this request. This is a gift from JTL Knife River. And like I said, we will obviously be developing a master plan with Conservation Land Staff, Morgan's team, and Conservation Lands Advisory Committee, and probably every rank of the city at some point soon. So there obviously will be costs associated with that, but at this point, we're not requesting anything, as this is a gift. Any questions on what we've touched on so far?
Let me check for council questions. I just wanted to add that I'm happy that we received that letter from the university to give us some, as you put it, reasonable assurance that there will be a path to public access. I think that's great. So I want to thank the university for that. And let's see, I do have some council questions. So let me get my screen up correctly. I think that this is in order. So Julie, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Grant. I'm really excited to see this come before us. I know it's been kind of a long time in coming that the folks at JTL wanted to try and do this transfer several months ago. So glad to see that happening. I hope that as the planning of this goes forward, that those stakeholders who have already expressed to parks and other city staff their desire to be involved in that they will be directly involved, including the Audubon Society, the Clark Park Coalition, and the University of Montana. I think that there's maybe been a little bit of a difference of opinion of preserving some portions of this for rather limited public access, as far as just how much trail building do we do in order to make it easy, with the idea towards making it a space where we can have some protected habitat for the birds and the waterfowl that have been using this site a lot. And I think there may be someone in the attendees list who might want to comment to that further, but I strongly urge close participation with those stakeholders in the design process. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Can I speak to that really quickly? I was going to kind of just go into that. Is that okay, Amber, to jump in?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, and I just I know some of you on this call are very sort of intimately familiar with what Julie just mentioned, the sort of the citizen collaborative that's going on. But for those of you that aren't, just a quick background. So there is a citizen group comprised of, I'm probably going to forget somebody, but Clark Fork Coalition, Audubon Society, Montana Natural Heritage Program. And I think a couple others. Anyway, so there's a citizen group that has designed sort of a grand vision for this property, and they've met with the mayor and several council members, and as well as city staff. And so there's a vision that they presented. They've had some plans drawn up, and they feel very strongly about certain things. And then on the other hand, as I believe back in 2009, I don't know if Don is on this call. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, or Morgan.
I think it was 2002, Grant.
Dude, was it that far back? Yeah. So I think
It was that far back. Yeah.
Okay. So when the partnership agreement was drafted, I think it was spurred by that. Obviously, the city, I think, in coordination with JTL Knife River, had some plans drawn up as well. And I think that some of you have seen those plans. Obviously, that will all have to be vetted by the public process. But I just wanted to note that there are some inconsistencies between those two plans, but they're not that far off. And so I feel confident. And Julia, that's a great point. I think that those folks have, the potential partnerships in mind. There's a lot of different angles that we can look at that. But I just wanted you guys to be aware that there is a group of citizens that have put a lot of work into this, as has the city. And so I think that, obviously we will meet with partners in the community and design the plan accordingly to, and also, obviously follow the public process as we do for our other open space properties.
Grant, just to chime in, and I think it's going to be absolutely critical. And from the Parks Department perspective, it's going to be absolutely critical for us to involve those entities. And so I think that is something that is fully intended to have strong partnerships around this parcel. It's always been that way. And, we've having folks that are intimately involved with it, that are willing to put some skin in the game and help make this a great thing for local habitats in the community, is definitely in everybody's interest.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to add to that too. I mean, I've been involved in those conversations. I think that it's great having more voices at the table. Many times they have access to grant money and things that helps with the projects as well. And I agree with Julie on that, but my experience also has been that the Parks Department has been really happy to have that involvement. So I look forward to those partnerships as well. One other thing I just wanted to say, I had met with the Montana Audubon in this process as well. And I don't know, maybe Grant, maybe you or Morgan know exactly what this is, but this pond, it was amazing to me. This pond, and I think it's just in the north-south, is the only still water for migrating birds to rest for a really, really long, area. You have the rivers, of course, but that's not quite as restful for them. So anyway, I don't know I can't remember exactly what from Flathead down to where it was, but it really is an important bird area. And I think their voice is going to be really important in it as well.
If I might, Donna Gockler, Director of Parks and Recreation. And I just want to encourage City Council. One of the things we try not to do is design major regional and community parks without having all of the stakeholders involved. And so I want to assure all of you and the public and our stakeholders that there will be a robust public planning process. The only plan that was done to date by the city was done in partnership with Knife River to assist in their efforts with reclamation, so that they would not be doing work that we would then be tearing apart. And in fact, it would start to get us in that direction. One of our goals with allowing us about a year to do inventories, to gather the science, the natural science, the habitat values, and really learn about the site. It was also part of the EA that Grant mentioned, There are numerous stakeholders. Some have been more forward than others, and there are numerous benefits, and we want to hear all of them. And as I just encourage council to give us a chance to present a thorough public process. We'd like to do that with consultants so that everybody is heard and be real consistent with the way we've designed other large community assets.
Thank you, Donna. I'm going to move on to the other council questions. Gwen?
Thanks. This is a perfect slide to have up. I'm just curious as to, on the river edge of these Knife River properties where there's kind of that triangle that edges in and then back out, who owns that? Is that part of this transfer? If not, how will it work? I mean, it looks like we want to have trails going around the pond. I'm just confused. Can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, thanks, Gwen. That's a great question. And I was planning to bring that up once we started talking about sort of the future. So that parcel is currently owned by Friends of Missoula Parks, and they have conveyed to us that they desire to transfer that to us as well. It was my intention was to have it as part of this, well, at least as another agenda item today. And I couldn't quite get the communication I needed in the documents, but that will be coming forward very soon. And it will essentially just be, I think, probably a quick claim deed from Friends of Missoula Parks to the city. And it'll be a similar sort of explanation as this, way less complicated, and it will transfer to us. And I'm hoping to have that. That'll be pretty quick once we get through council review.
Great, wonderful, thanks.
Thank you. Heather?
Thanks. Donna, I just want to say, first off, you anticipated my question around stakeholders. So I very much appreciate you trying to engage with people that may have a different view than what your department has. And I guess along those lines, when I see still water, there's definitely benefit for the birds, but I also see it as opportunities for some other types of recreation, be it fishing or kayaking or even small boat sailing. And I'm wondering if any of those have been part of this vision for these large ponds.
They have. We've considered all types of outdoor recreation, environmental education, as well as habitat protection throughout the process, and have been very specific and careful not to make any commitments in any direction without doing a thorough study and a thorough public process. The only thing that we have generally seemed to agree to, regardless of who we speak to, almost regardless of who we speak to, is motorized because of potential for waterfowl and even songbirds and fish habitat. Although I will share with you, we also have a number of people in our community who would very much like a place to run motorized hobby boats and planes. This probably won't be the site, but we also are working with those folks to find a site for them one day.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Brian?
Thanks. Do you need a motion?
I do.
I would be happy to make that recommended motion. Appreciate the discussion and the points everyone's raised. I will simply emphasize what you were bringing up, Amber. The ecological value of this location is just incredible. It's an incredibly exciting opportunity from a restoration and all ecological factors moving forward. So, and I have every confidence in the planning process going forward. I want to quickly thank, I'm one of the council members that's been out there several times and in conference rooms talking about this for years. I want to recognize the efforts of my prior colleague, Marilyn Marler. And I know there are some attendees online, Ed and John and many others that I'm not naming, but really appreciate everyone's interest and attention to this, and it's just a great opportunity for the community.
Thank you, and I apologize. There's some noise in the background here at my house. Thank you, and I would also like to piggyback on that. There has been a lot of effort from a lot of people through the years and a lot of organizations, and I just appreciate the Parks Department and all of those partners in the community getting us to this point, because this is a really exciting, this has some exciting possibilities ecologically as well as for recreation. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that public process moves forward and what comes out of it. I'm going to go to since we have a motion on the floor, I'm going to go to public comment. I only see 3 people. And as attendees, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, please raise your hand. And no one is raising their hand. So I'm going to go ahead and go to a roll call vote if there are no more comments from council. Okay. Grant, do you mind stop your screen sharing? It'll make it a little easier for me to run through this.
I think that's Morgan's actually.
Oh,
I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying. The
Morgan.
icon's hidden behind another icon on my
I'll go to roll
computer.
call. Thank you, Morgan. I'm going to go to roll call vote on this item. Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
and Ramos has joined us. I don't
Yes.
know if I said that in the middle of this, but he is. Okay, so he's here. Jesse Ramos. Did you say yes? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Cheryl is a yes. Vasika,
Yes. We're having a hard time hearing you.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
and West.
Yes.
Okay, that was unanimous. So that will go on the consent agenda. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your presentation, but don't go anywhere because I think that you are our next item as well. So this is Schmidt Road, Milwaukee Trail to Mullen Road Connector Public Trail Easement Open Space Acquisition. And Grant, I think you're on that one as well. So take it
Me
over.
again. Thanks, guys. Grant Carlton, Open Space Program Manager, City of Missoula Parks and Rec. Like Amber said, we are going to be reviewing the Schmidt Road public access easement request. And this is a request of an expenditure from the 2006 Open Space Bond to purchase a perpetual public trail easement that will provide a critical connection between the Milwaukee Trail Corridor and Mullen Road and Trail. And that request is $25,000. And I wanted to note the distinction. So this is a request from the 2006 Open Space Bond as opposed to the 2018 Open Space Bond. From Missoula County's accounting, I glean that we have somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 left in the city's share of the 2006 Open Space Bond. I'm attempting to work with Missoula County finance team to sort of iron out that definitive number so I can report back at some point. So what we have here is the proposal for the purchase of a perpetual public trail easement across Schmidt Road property. That property is owned by Delbert Fox. It's about 8.5 acres, and the sort of the trail easement component will be about a half mile of trail. And that property is bisected by an undeveloped portion of the Milwaukee Trail and extends from that section of the Milwaukee Trail to Mullen Road. I'm going to try to share my screen here just so we can pull up a map so you guys can see.
Yeah,
it.
that'd be great to be able to see it.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, so in blue here is the Fox property, what we're calling Schmidt Road. Yeah, and as I mentioned, it provides a critical connection that will allow future users of the Milwaukee Trail to travel from the Milwaukee Trail corridor to Mullen Road and Mullen Trail and beyond. And so obviously that is a critical connection as our community grows. So basically, just to talk about the area. So if you can see my cursor, this portion of the trail northwest of the Clark Fork River is currently undeveloped. But these sections here are part of the Milwaukee Trail corridor. And the ultimate vision is to extend the Milwaukee Trail corridor, which ends just west of Reserve Street down here, across the Clark Fork River and up to Mullen Road and beyond. And one of the reasons why we're not taking up the actual Milwaukee Trail corridor here is that there's a house built right smack dab in the middle of this parcel. People don't like trails right next to their house. So we've, sort of concluded that this was sort of our path of least resistance, at least right now. That could change in the future. So we're trying to essentially move users of the trail from the Milwaukee Trail to Mullen Road, and then hopefully connect back to the Milwaukee Trail corridor at some point in the future. I've been in talks with the airport. They're potentially willing to provide a project on their portion of the Milwaukee Trail. So there's efforts ongoing in the area that are promising. That will provide even more connections. And I just wanted to touch on, we had some really good questions from members of OSAC as to, why are we focusing on this piece when we have undeveloped trail portions down here? And the answer to that is that this is sort of we're capitalizing on opportunity where we have a willing buyer, essentially. As Missoula grows and land values shoot through the roof, properties changing hands, we wanted to really jump on this while we had a willing seller. And so that's what we're doing. And it's, compared to some of the other Milwaukee Trail projects and other open space projects, it's fairly low hanging fruit from a financial standpoint. So I just wanted to touch on that. Let's see here. And obviously, the city, both with the open space bond, previous open space bonds, and other efforts, has invested significantly in, extending and connecting the Milwaukee Trail, as well as also the Bitterroot Trail. And so this important connection will just sort of expand on those efforts and increase connectivity as Missoula grows. I wanted to kind of give you guys some context. As I mentioned, the current trail stops just west of Reserve Street. Back in, I believe it was 2016, the city acquired the Colin Ditch property, which is down here. And so we have plans to extend the trail across that piece. We have the Clark Fork Islands Tower Street Conservation Area here. The Clark Fork Islands, we're calling it now, went through a sort of public planning process back in July of this year. We do have plans. We're sort of, at this point, working to obtain plans and budgets for a bridge across the channels of the Clark Fork River. Here we have the Klaus property, which we have been working with that landowner for a while now. So we have a relationship there. The next two gaps are owned by JTL Knife River. And so my plan is, once we hopefully transfer the Knife River Ponds property that we just discussed to the city, we can sort of build on some of that goodwill and start discussing a plan for these two parcels to, connect these, sort of fill in these gaps here.
And Grant, you might note that we do have one of those Knife River pieces.
Right. Yep. We do have the one that's highlighted. And so we just actually have two gaps here. Thanks, Donna. And so, again, hopefully starting in the new year, we're going to start discussions with JTL Knife River regarding that gap, as well as the Klauses.
Grant, Morgan Vine, Conservation Lands Manager here. Actually, we just have one gap. That one that you have highlighted across the Klaus Poplar Farm has a 25-year option that if we can connect all of these parcels, we get an easement across that parcel.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Good point. Yep. Thanks, Morgan. Yeah. So we've got a lot of momentum building here in this area. We're pretty close to having a connection pending a very expensive bridge, which is in the works. Once I kind of wrap up, if you guys have questions on that, please feel free. While we've got Donna and Morgan here too, and if Neil's still on the call. So the extension of the Milwaukee Trail is prioritized in almost every plan we have. It's specifically mentioned in the Missoula Urban Area Open Space Plan, the Activate Missoula 2045 Missoula Long Range Transportation Plan, Master Parks Plan, and the Active Transportation Plan also identify the expansion of the Milwaukee Trail and the Bitterroot Trail. So this is a high priority for connecting the city. We also have the Mullen Area Master Plan ongoing right now with the city and the county. So we're expecting significant growth out in the Mullen area. So this is a really nice opportunity to allow the residents of those neighborhoods to access both open space along the river, as well as sustainably commute into the urban core of Missoula. So as we grow, it's just going to become increasingly difficult and important to secure some of these connections. And so we're trying to stay on top of it and jump on some of these opportunities while we can before, property changes hands or it becomes even more expensive. So you will likely see more sort of Milwaukee Trail type projects coming forward in the Mullen area. Again, we're asking for $25,000 from the 2006 open space bond. $10,000 of that, so $15,000 will be for the actual trail easement, and then the remaining $10,000 will be for transaction costs, and that is an up to request. We have some consulting costs that we've sort of incurred basically because of the gap in my employment, so between Elizabeth and myself. So we had to bring on a consultant to sort of facilitate some of that. We might have some survey costs and other sort of due diligence costs. So we anticipate it not being more than $10,000, but again, that is sort of a maximum. Any questions?
Thanks, Grant. I appreciate that. I appreciate the presentation, and puzzles don't always puzzle, and I agree with you that the timing is growth and our property values are going now.
Amber, this is maybe me, but Amber,
on your first slide,
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Amber, something's wrong with
council
your
member.
Wi-Fi. I can't hear you. I don't think she can hear us either.
And she's gone.
I'm back.
Hey,
Excellent. Amber, you might have to turn your video off because we're not hearing anything that you're saying.
Okay, thank you. I did turn my video off. I couldn't hear what you were saying either, Julie, so until it kicked me out, and then I figured out what was going on. So anyway, I wanted just to say that that I don't think all the puzzle pieces come together in order always, so I'm glad that you're working on putting this together, in the way that you can, with a final vision in mind. And I had said that I think that most every council member can attest to the fact that we have seen George Elmer on a lot of slides recently, because there is a lot of development going on out there. And of course, we have the Mullen Area Master Plan. I think that for this area, to get this trail put together and have that as a commuting route is fabulous, especially as we grow in that area. So I just really appreciate the work around it. Let's see, we have just a few minutes left here, but I do see that Julie, I thought you had your hand up first, so I'm going to go ahead. Julie, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. And I support this. I know that these things do come to us piece by piece, and it doesn't always make all, one connection all at the same time. So I appreciate the continued work on this. My concern, however, is about the bridge. from colleagues that I've talked to, engineers and hydrologists, there's some serious concern about putting the bridge in the location where it formerly was. And Grant, can you tell us where you guys are at with the planning for that?
Do that better, Julie. We're still negotiating. HDR was selected as the most qualified. We haven't finalized that agreement yet to look at the scope, but that's part of our due diligence. At some point, we know we need to connect the Grove Street Cullen Ditch property to the rest of the Milwaukee corridor, and we will do our best to find the best route.
I can add a little to that, Morgan Bank Conservation Alliance Manager. One thing to note, I think a lot of the discussion around those bridges has been about the abutments and specifically the abutments in the river. It's worth noting that those bridges that used to be there held up trains, and we're looking at much lighter weight bridges to deal with commuter traffic, and the spans that we're able to achieve with those bridges, similar to what we did with the California Street Bridge over the Clark Fork River. We're just in a different world. And so I do feel, and based on some of the discussions with the engineers that we're hiring to do this, that there is a feasible option that can get us across the river here that's not going to look exactly like the railroad bridges that have had to hold up millions of pounds in the past.
Thanks, Morgan. Jordan.
Thanks. I think this is really exciting. I have been eagerly awaiting this development, as a lot of people have over the last several years. I just want to thank staff for all the work on this, and I'd like to make the recommended motion to set the public hearing.
Great, thank you. And Mirta.
Thank you. Yes, I too, I'm fully supportive of this. I know and I trust that our staff has looked at all the potential for this connection. And so, they're here asking for us to consider this because it has legs, it has potential, maybe not tomorrow or in 5 years, but we have to continue to keep our goal for the future connection in this area, especially in this area, because it is lacking some connectivity. So I think that this would be the right thing to do and support it.
Thank you. I agree with that. This is an exciting project. I will take, since we have a motion on the floor, I will take public comment on this motion. So if you are the two people that are in it as attendees, if you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand. And I do not see either of them raising their hand. So I am going to go ahead and take a roll call vote on this. Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes.
Harp. Heather.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I heard you. Thanks.
Okay.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Cheryl is a yes. Vasika.
Yes.
Von Lossberg.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. So that will be on the consent agenda. And thank you very much, everyone. I think that is our last item for today, and we're running out of time anyway. So thank you, Morgan and Donna and Grant. I think both of these projects are really exciting and have kind of long-term vision in mind. So I just appreciate that you think that way and are looking at our projects for the city in that manner. So with that, if there are no additional comments, we will be adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.